Following off the unprecedented success of my last video, a clip of an American political meme, I've decided to fittingly follow it up with a Deltarune Theory video. Look, this game has been fermenting in my brain for the past 6 months, and with chapters 3 and 4 fast approaching, I feel like I have to share with you all a theory that I have about the identity of Chapter 3's secret boss. As Toby has stated himself, Chapter 3 is going to be a unique one. A major element setting Chapter 3 apart is that, for the first time, we get to see the room where a dark fountain is made before we enter its dark world. Now, this raises a question. How much of the Dreamer household is a part of the Dark World? You might think it's just the living room, considering both chapters 1 and 2 only took place in one room, but there's actually evidence to the contrary. In the summer 2024 newsletter, Toby reveals some dialogue translations from Chapter 3. One of them is dialogue related to enemies named Gingerguard, which seems to be the darker form of the gingerbread humans and monsters found in one of the kitchen drawers. An item discussed in the 2024 holiday newsletter, Pizza Scent, corresponds to Icy's Cool Boys body spray for the boys' flaming hot pizza flavor in the bathroom, and the green rune roughly resembles the layout of Asriel and Chris's bedroom, with a polished left and dilapidated right. From these snippets, it seems that the Dark World encompasses the entirety of the Dreamer household, which leaves open the possibility for anything within it to become a Darkner. Now, the main boss of Chapter 3 is quite clear. It's the TV with the evil grin who is almost definitely named Tenna. But every chapter has also had a secret boss, which is not required to complete the chapter, but grants you a key item, the Shadow Crystal. After Jevil and Spamton, who's Chapter 3's secret boss? Well, by now you've probably read the title, so first, let's talk about what How to Draw Dragons even is. If in Chapter 1 you talk to Birdley in the library, he has some dialogue about the family debt, saying that How to Draw Dragons is 2,583 days overdue. If you talk to him again, he clarifies what exactly this book is. Ah, did you forget what it looks like? The front is, perhaps, a mauve dragon wearing lipstick. And as for her clothes, I believe they are, well, you know, Chris, I think you'll know it when you see it. Sure enough, if we inspect a drawer outside Chris and Asriel's bedroom after this, we find the book. How to Draw Dragons is at the bottom of the drawer. The purple character on the cover is dressed immodestly. Your brother will never return this book. Just gonna add him to the list. Already we see some patterns that might point to this book being our secret boss. Each one so far has been an item that has been discarded. Jevil is a joker card, frequently tossed out of decks, and Spamton is a spam email, often moved to the trash, or in the computer lab's case, the literal recycling bin. This book has been placed at the bottom of the drawer, never to be returned again. But remember, this Dark World isn't just about the Dreamer House, it's also about TV. And How to Draw Dragons also fits discardedness in this theme. The dragon on the cover is dressed immodestly, so presumably the book's contents are rather naughty. And so, previously, was much of television. Back in the day, the airwaves were filled with commercials for shady dating hotlines and channels of scrambled smut. But nowadays, with the advent of the internet, these have all but disappeared. I think a lot of theories on Chapter 3's secret boss lean heavily into the TV angle or the Dreamer household angle, but this item's discardedness can easily be connected to both. How to Draw Dragon's secret boss would also fit well with the overall narrative. In a Chapter 4 cutscene, Susie remarks that Chris's family is weird. This implies she becomes acquainted with more of its members than just Toriel. With the book being taken out by the as-of-yet unseen Asriel, it would allow us to learn yet more about him before his return next week. We know from Alvin and Toriel that young Asriel had a great fondness for a video game's green lizard, and he might have a similar fondness for this adult reptile. If you call Toriel, she is also willing to help Chris avoid the book's debt, implying that perhaps this book has sentimental value to multiple members of the family. And because the book has been overdue for several years, it might have been taken out when Asriel and Des were close, revealing more about her as well. We certainly will need more information if we want to find her. .mp3. Speaking of Asriel, Ralsei is meant to be a clear allusion to him, with similar appearances, personalities, and their names being anagrams. The dragon on the cover is described as being mauve, which is a light shade of purple. Thus, it's entirely possible that the secret boss will similarly allude to Susie, perhaps with an anagrammed name. Did Toby just... With regards to the major themes of Deltarune, the book ties in remarkably well with the already established recurring topics of fiction and escapism. By drawing, you are literally creating a fictional reality by plunging a sharp object into a surface. The dragon's suggestive nature would allow a Darkner to explore attraction to fictional characters, something Toby is undoubtedly familiar with. It certainly wouldn't be explicit, but the game does include suggestive themes in its ESRB rating, which makes such themes possible. While this is all well and good, there's another big component to this theory that really cements it for me. Deltarune is described multiple times as Undertale's parallel story. That's certainly an interesting phrase. Why use that terminology instead of, say, Undertale's successor? Sure, there are recurring characters, but parallel story implies some sort of narrative connection. And it turns out there is one. I'm definitely not the first person to bring this up, but here it is. Deltarune's Dark Worlds parallel Undertale in reverse. Let's start with Chapter 1. In the Dark World, we learn of the game's grand backstory before journeying through the Card Kingdom, encountering characters speaking of an imposing king who has been shut out by the outside world and committed to a rather violent mission, and who we eventually fight right past his throne room. This bears a striking similarity to New Home. Now, King and Asgore are, personality-wise, very different, but keep in mind that Asgore originally had a much more imposing personality, one which may be reflected in King. Heck, the two of them even both have Queen ex-lovers. Chapter 1 also has another secret boss that, while completely optional, overshadows the King's due to its sheer difficulty, newly introduced mechanics, and incredible backing soundtrack. The boss monologues about his fourth wall-inspired absurdist nihilism with a smile, dropping tidbits of lore along the way. Sounds a lot like Mr. the Skeleton, right? Chapter 2's Cyber World has allusions to the previous area, Core, with its cyan-filled color scheme and technological theme. The Queen, with her robotic nature and ostentatious outfit, complete with high heels, echoes Mettaton X. There's a save point in her mansion alluding both to her legs, a mimetically iconic feature of Mettaton, and to Undertale save points. And Spamton, well, the Spamton neophyte was literally originally supposed to be a Mettaton neophyte. From the snippets we have of chapters 3 and 4, this pattern continues. Hotland's autumnal color palette continues in this chapter 3 screenshot, and a major part of Hotland are several short television minigames, something which, from what we've seen, also appears to be a part of this chapter. There is a point system, after all. Chapter 4 takes place in the church, whose preacher, Father Alvin, is the son of Gershwin, who appears in Waterfall. A screenshot from chapter 4 shows a reuse of image depth from the introduction, which we know is an edited photo of the ocean. And the only gameplay videos of Chapter 4 shown in the trailer are chase sequences, which are also a major feature of Waterfall. So, following this, Tenna will be a Mettaton counterpart, right? Not quite. You see, while we encounter Mettaton throughout Hotland, we never actually fight him. He only attacks us through a quiz show, and even then, you can't die to him. Everything is a part of Alphys' scripted plan. The true fight against Mettaton happens in Core, and the major boss of Hotland, and thus the one Tenna would pull inspiration from, is actually Muffet. After all, she has her own boss theme and her own soul mode. There's evidence for this in this Chapter 3 screenshot where a TV-headed entity is shown in the border, which very well could be Tenna, considering its prominent antennae. To me, it resembles most of all a snail, a favorite animal of Toriel and Asgore, and one mentioned in multiple books on the Dreamer House's bookshelf. Now, snails and spiders are biologically very different, but they're both mini-beasts, what many would conformally call bugs. And once you try to apply real-world biology to Undertale and Deltarune, you get massive flame wars over whether Noelle is trans. So, Tenna is like Mettaton, but also like Muffet. Where does that leave the secret boss? Well, the only thing I could describe as a secret boss in Hotland is So Sorry. If you don't know, So Sorry is a monster only accessible in the hidden art club room at a specific time and date. His boss fight is themed around his passion for art and drawing, and during his fight he uses a magic pencil that allows his drawings to become completely real. The parallels to How to Draw Dragons, and indeed Darkness in general, are clear. Art lets your wildest fantasies come to life, says the Doodlebog's check text, which is a theme we see restated in Deltarune. Looking outside the game to the details of the character's development, we find more evidence in favor of a connection. While So Sorry's design in Undertale looks somewhat like a kangaroo, the author's original design is a dragon. Additionally, the creator of So Sorry faced harassment over fetishistic elements in their work, which Toby has publicly commented against. Asriel feels shame about the nature of the book he took out, presumably due to Toriel's rather prudish attitudes. How to Draw Dragons would thus continue the parallels to Undertale being set up in the previous 2 chapters. As an aside, I figure it should be said that the original creator of So Sorry is rather involved in a fandom space with some credible accusations of severe sexual misconduct. I won't get into the details since they are rather complicated, graphic, and not exactly relevant to this theory, but I figure I should say this, considering if I don't, others will certainly bring it up in the comments. I know separating the art from the artist is a tricky thing, but I believe it can be done here. The character itself is rather removed from the artist's persona to the extent Temmie changed the overworld sprite to be less like it, and as far as I can tell, the original creator is not receiving anything financially from Undertale's success. They paid Toby to have this character in the game, not the other way around. You can dislike the character or person all you want, but So Sorry is still a part of the game. And if you are a fan of Deltarune, a game that explores the consequences of interacting with fiction, both good and bad, to such a degree, then I believe you should try to hold a more nuanced view of a situation like this. So, that's my theory. Thank you all for watching this distillation of my frankly out there thoughts on this game. A huge thank you to Koiwa for allowing me to use her design for How to Draw Dragons Darkner in my thumbnail in this video. Her video designing Chapter 3 characters is criminally underviewed. You should go watch it. I might make more videos on Deltarune once I finish Chapters 3 and 4, so stay tuned for that. And as always, don't forget.